how to subscribe. So I'm just giving them my links to subscribe. Okay, so we're about ready to start. So what I want to start with is I stumbled across you kind of by accident with a video that had gone, it's actually going almost viral, of you going into protest about the call to prayer being played in schools in Canada. And having chatted with you a little bit, I know that you're originally, you're Palestinian, but you also lived in Saudi Arabia for a number of years, probably more of your life than you didn't. So first thing I want to do is give people an opportunity to know a little bit about yourself. So if you can tell me about yourself, how old were you when you went to Saudi? How long did you live there for? And what kind of things did you experience in Saudi for yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you in this mission to educate people about the danger of Islam and to expose the evil teaching about it. Well, my name is Sandra Solomon, and I'm from Palestinian family. I was born actually in the city called Ramallah in Israel, but I was raised in Saudi Arabia. We moved there when I was nine years old. Before that, we went to Jordan and then to Saudi Arabia. I spent there like almost all my life. Even when I was forced to marriage, also it was in Saudi Arabia. So most of my life I spent it in Saudi Arabia. The schooling, all the schooling, I did it all in Saudi Arabia too.
So what kind of, because you are now, for anybody who's not aware, you're what Islamics would call an apostate. You left Islam.
Right.
At what age would you say you had made the decision to leave Islam?
It's gradually, I would say, between high school, between like after like at the age of high school, at the high school age. I won't say it like, you know, I left it fully, but fully left it when I also like at the age like around 19, 20, around this, like from high school to age of 20, around this age, I stopped. I fully stopped, like, you know, believing in all this Islamic teaching and the Quran and all that, what they teach us.
And can I ask, because obviously Saudi is, you could say, #1 hotspot for Sharia law.
Right.
Did you ever yourself witness any or suffer any punishment or witness any punishments of Sharia law?
Of course. Well, let's give the people idea about how is it in Saudi Arabia when it comes to the education system. The education system in Saudi Arabia mainly focused on the Islamic teaching. I would say the Quran itself. Like every day we have like 2 or 3 classes only Islamic study. Like we study the Quran, and we study like what do you call it? You know, the tafsir, meaning the explanation, commentary, and we study also the history, the life of Muhammad, the hadith. What do you call it? The hadith. And yes, and also the whole Sharia law as a system, as a political system as well. So most of our studying since I was 9 years old, all the way to high school, the subjects are influenced heavily about Islamic studying. Most of it, don't not very much of focusing. There is some other subject, but it's not as focused on as the Islamic subjects. Like maybe a little bit of math, a little bit of in high school, like psychology, a little bit of even the history, it's not the history of I would say Europe or other country, like a general history, mainly Saudi history. The Saudis family and what they achieve and what their history and what they did. Mainly Arabic, a little bit of the Arabic whatever countries surround, but not really focused. The main thing is Islam. It's Islamic teaching, very heavily focused.
And you,
so the education system in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. And,
sorry, go ahead.
And did you think that for what reason did you move out to Saudi Arabia from Palestine?
Well, it's not like I moved out when I was born there. My grandma was already from the 1948 conflict, when the conflict started. So my grandma, the mother of my dad, she was already established in Jordan. And my dad and my mom, they got divorced when I was baby. And under Islamic law, the kids, they go to the father, not the mother. So I end up going with my dad. My mom, she was still in the like the West Bank, where her family was there. So and they took us. I was baby at that time, so it's not like something I choose. I find myself there.
So Saudi was really all you knew.
Sorry?
Lifestyle, Saudi Arabia was the only lifestyle you knew.
Yeah, of course, because as I said, when we moved to Saudi Arabia, my dad remarried with another woman, and they got another kid. So actually, my dad had a good job in Saudi Arabia, and so we end up really settling there. First of all, because my dad, he got a good opportunity, money wise as well, to work there. So he ended up taking us there. And as I said, I was only 9 years old. So yeah, this is the only lifestyle we know. Like that's the only thing. And even like between the summer schooling, summertime, vacation, we would go to Jordan. Just between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. That's the only, I would say, two country I traveled back and forward to.
So did you wear the burqa when you lived in Saudi Arabia, or was at that point was it a little more liberal?
Yes, I would. Yes, the city I grew up in Saudi Arabia, called Jeddah. This city, not too far from Mecca. It's about like an hour or so, like a driving. So I'm in the middle, like in the core of the Islamic birth, when of Mecca. And of course, the hijab, it's a must in Saudi Arabia. Under Sharia law, woman has no option to wear the hijab. And actually, the hijab was one of the main reasons it makes me hate Islam. I don't want it to. I start criticize, or feeling that I'm under pressure. I'm being forced into something that I don't want. The hijab was the main reason that makes me hate, I would say, the lifestyle. And I always say to people, I did not just study Islam, I lived Islam. When you live under Sharia law, it's totally different than you study. You're just bringing a book and you're studying it, right? So wearing the hijab, it's a must when we were in the school. The covering of the whole face, not just the full face. Everything has to be covered. We have to wear the what do you call it, abaya?
Yeah.
The black one, from head to toe. Even the teachers, um, at the door of the school, when the girls are leaving, they do, like, they scan them, like they want to make sure everything is covered. And the girl who's not fully covered very well, or the veil see through to her face, she would be like, pull over, stopped, and they force us to make it double so nobody can see our face at all. And if we refuse, and it's a big problem. And that's something happened to me. That's when you asked me about did you experience things in Saudi Arabia. when I start feeling, I always was like, I'm a questioner, I'm a rebel. I don't take things like, I don't just follow
Mhm.
just for the sake of it. This is part of my personality. And for this reason, one day happened, like I start rebelling, like refusing to submit to this suppressive orders on us, like as a human. Like, where's my freedom to choose if I want to cover or not? But it's something that really happened to me since I was like almost a high school, like I would say 15, 16, something like that. When I had an accident, my first accident with uh, with the teacher, my first conflict, I would say, with the teachers that happened. I Of course, we have the Quran with us every day because we have to recite the Quran every day and memorize. When she asked me to make sure my veil is covered 100% and it's doubled, so my face was see-through, I end up freaking out on her, and I threw the Quran to her face, and I said, I won't submit to this, and I'm not gonna cover. And actually, in the Quran, it doesn't say that woman has to cover her face. There's nothing in the Quran. It says that woman must cover her face. This is so that's why I was very mad, and I start really feeling um, I'm under pressure.
Oppressed? Would you say oppressed is a good word? The word oppressed.
Yes,
So,
because you have to. It's either you do it or you're gonna be in trouble.
and when you say by be in trouble, that obviously there are women in Saudi Arabia who are beaten. There are women in Saudi Arabia who are stoned to death for adultery if they can't produce 4 male witnesses to rape. These things happen, even though we are told now that Saudi Arabia has now joined the European Court of Human Rights, which I find absolutely insane, if I'm honest.
If Saudi Arabia joins, later on they're gonna make ISIS also join the human rights.
Well, I'm sure that we are being told in.
Like, also we can maybe accepting ISIS, because Saudi Arabia, it is ISIS, and ISIS, it is Saudi Arabia.
I know that a lady that I know very well who was raised in Iran, and she said when it came to the burqa, the abaya, the niqab, if a lock of hair was showing, that the women would actually take pins and actually pin it to their forehead to make sure it covered their forehead properly.
Yes, and also there is the Sharia police in the streets, in the malls. If a woman, it happens. I saw this in my eyes when my stepmom, they hit her with the stick to make sure that she's covered, right? And they hit women like as a slave. It's a slavery. This is not. It's far from anything has to do with the human rights or humanity. It's
Would you also say
you
that
know
in Saudi it's also common practice for much older men to marry very, very young children?
there's many things. Things I personally experience it because uh, as I said, the forcing of the hijab. As I was young, um, at that time, see in my eyes, a man walking in the street. We don't know. How do we know, right? It's like everything is covered. How do you know who's walking with him? It's his wife or his daughter? How can we know? Because most of the girls are covered. And I would say my own like personal experience when I start questioning. This is very important to say. Even to question, you're not allowed. If you doubt, if you question, they will think that, oh, what's going on with you? Are you doubting? Are you doubting Islam? To doubt, it's a crime. It's against Islam to doubt Islam. Like it's against Sharia law to even doubt it, to even question it. You
So
have to submit. You have
it's almost robotic, where emotions, the ability to self-think. I was raised as a child to be very much an open-minded thinker, and to think for myself and to question actually everything. My father taught me very much question everything, never take anything as gospel, question everything. You're taught in Saudi Arabia the complete opposite, question nothing. So no independent, free, you can't think freely and independently. Your thoughts are almost controlled for you. So it's not just your life that's controlled, but your thoughts are also controlled.
exactly. If every time I would ask or I would refuse, if I would refuse, I would get beaten. My brother used to abuse me physically a lot. I got abused a lot physically, harsh beating, because I refused to wear the hijab when I go to Jordan. Because Jordan, it's not like it is like majority Muslim, but it's not 100% Sharia law. They give women it's mixed with a little bit of um, like a liberal,
Liberalism.
I would, yeah, a little bit. But yet the families, it's a tribal thing and it's a family thing controlling, right? So my brother used to beat me a lot, like physically, if I refuse, because as soon we leave Saudi Arabia to go to Jordan, the first thing I always wanted to do is to take off my hijab. I felt like it's time for me to breathe. I felt like I'm in grave. I just want to breathe. I want to feel the air on my hair. I want to feel the air on my face. So this my brother was a very much a religious, and would I refuse if I leave the house without the hijab, and if he like he would beat me up, and many times I would rebel. I always was rebelling against them, and so a couple times when I told him I'm not gonna wear it and I'm gonna go out without it. So a couple times when he caught me out, and this is another one thing, the men in Islam, they are the guardian of the woman. She cannot, she must have a man over her deciding for her what to wear, where to go, when to go, what time to come, and there's no trust at all whatsoever. My brother, when he caught me like outside without the hijab, many times, and he locked me home. I was locked up at home for so many months, almost like it was like a 2 years. I was, when we finished the high school, I went to Jordan to get the college, right? So,
Mhm.
but he saw me without the hijab, and he beat me up. I was abused very, very harsh, up to the point I couldn't move. For 2 weeks, I'm in bed. I cannot move. I'm bruises all over my body, and they stopped me going to finish my education. I couldn't finish my education because of the hijab thing.
So a piece of material, a piece of clothing depicted who you were in every way, shape or form. It literally was your only identification was black clothing.
Right. If you wear the hijab, then you are good. If you don't wear the hijab, then you are objective for a sexual assault, or maybe rape, or verbally or physically. So because in Islam, they brainwash the kids, the girls, since they're young. They tell them, if you wear the hijab, you are like a candy. You are a candy. If you are covered, the fly will not come on it. And if you're open, the fly will come on it, and the fly representing the men. So that's why the mentality of men, the Muslim men, they grow up with this kind of mentality. If the women are not covered, that's mean she is she's telling the men openly, come and have sex with me or rape me. Or they don't think about it as They don't see it as you are a free woman, and you have a respect to your body, and it doesn't mean you're not wearing the hijab. You are uh,
To cut a long story short, it will basically mean if you were not covered, you were asking to have sex, and therefore they had every right to rape you because it's clearly what you wanted.
exactly. That's what they teach me. That's the stuff that I've been taught in Saudi Arabia. And the other thing, see, inside the education system, the Islamic education system, it's a brainwashing system. They brainwash the kids since they're young, the girls and the boys, with so many evil thoughts, evil thinking, backward thinking, savages thinking, um, barbaric thinking, the ideology. When I criticize the Islam, I criticize the ideology itself, how they think, what's going on in their minds. So whatever this ideology, it's been written in a book called Quran. It's translated. So this ideology, it comes from where? From who? From a guy named Muhammad. He translates his ideology, his thinking, to a book. He put it in the book. So when you read the Quran, you're actually, or when you study the Quran, you study Muhammad, you know Muhammad. And when you study Muhammad, you know the Quran. Like, if you don't want to bother, just study Muhammad. You don't have to read the Quran. Study him as a person, so you know the mentality of the majority of Muslims, how they think. They think Muhammad.
So how was you fortunate enough to, because you now reside in Canada, how were you fortunate enough to get from Saudi Arabia to Canada? Because I believe you're only in your early 30s and you lived in Saudi Arabia until you were 26. So that is over the majority of your lifespan. So how did you manage to be able to get to Canada? And what brought that about?
Okay. As I told you, when my brother refused to make me like finish my education, in the Islamic way of thinking, they think the woman, it's either like, as I said, she need always a man. So when they saw me questioning, rebelling, and I wanted to live freely, they were afraid of me. They fear my objectives and my thoughts and my uh, I'm going all the way against how they think and the lifestyle and the way they think. So they forced me into a marriage. I was forced into a marriage at age of 21, and this marriage also like happened in Saudi Arabia in the city called Al Khubar. It's the other side of Saudi Arabia, and my ex was the sponsor. He was applying to Canada, and that's how I got to come to Canada.
So would you say that your husband, was he the same age as you? Was he older than you?
He's older than me, was like 8 years, about 8 years.
And when you got to Canada, I'm assuming is at some point would have been when your marriage was somehow dissolved. So how does that come about? And because I know that you get death threats now because you are an apostate. So how did you go about being able to live your life with relative freedom in Canada and not being with your husband?
Well, I divorced him before I come, but I was already having my documents. So I ended up coming to Canada alone with my baby. And I just got my freedom, after that, because when I would say left is when we cannot say that you don't believe in Islam when you are in Islamic country, right? You cannot say this because this is crazy. I know I will be killed. I cannot open my mouth to say that. But I keep everything quiet to myself because I was like, as I said, you cannot speak, you cannot talk. If you speak, your head is gonna be cut off. And I saw the talking about the beheading. one of the things that I experienced in Saudi Arabia when I was about like 9/11, 9 or 11 years between that, I saw the beheading. My like after the Friday prayer, after the Jum'ah prayer, there is a place where people gather, and there is the man who's like we say Allahu Akbar with a big sword, and they cut off the heads. When the kids grow up in this kind of scene, they grow up to see this as a normal. This is normal to them. It dehumanizes us, right? That's what Islam do. Dehumanize people to make them see things. The beheading is okay. The rape, it's okay. Child marriage, it's okay. Anything, because they already dehumanized. They're a far away from being a normal human being who has feeling and thoughts and
you witnessed that yourself.
Of course, I witnessed this by myself. Like it's, as I said, like they Friday when they say that's why maybe one of the reason as well that makes me go a little bit, you know, serious about my warning for Canadians at the school meeting about the Friday prayer, because it brings my flashback. After every Friday prayer, they go to the beheading. To see beheading. This is their sermon. This is a part of that's the lifestyle. That's Islamic Sharia law lifestyle. It's normal, and they take kids to witness this. The kids, they see the beheading every Friday.
I've got a couple of people have asked questions. Now, one young lady, Rochelle, has asked, does Sandra think it is the Quran, Islam, or the country who enforces the law so strictly? And does she see Islam in the same way since she's moved away? Example, Sharia is not the same in Saudi as it is in England. So what I think she's asking is, do you blame, what do you hold responsible? Do you hold the Quran responsible, Islam, as in Quran and Islam, responsible? Do you hold the country responsible, i.e. Saudi Arabia? And do you think the Sharia is different because it's not being meted out, it's not being done in the same way in, say, England and Canada as it is in Saudi Arabia? So is it better and acceptable, I suppose, to have Sharia in Canada or in England or other countries because it's not quite as severe as it is in Saudi?
The question itself, I'm sorry to say that, it's wrong, because Sharia, you cannot make Sharia a better Sharia, a good Sharia. You can't do that, because in Islam, they say, like, this is the Quran. I was even holding this is their constitution. This is a constitutional book. So when they read, it's the problem, if we want to really address the issue, it's here. It's the book. This book, every Muslim in the world believes that this book, it's a divine message from the one and only true God, to bring the message of Tawheed, to bring people to submit to this, to Sharia. This is the Sharia constitution. We cannot make a better Sharia or bad Sharia or good Sharia or in between Sharia. No, Sharia, it's Sharia. Quran, it's Quran. Muhammad, it's Muhammad. Islam, it's Islam. There's no way we can reform it or make it, because it's in UK, it's different. No, they call it Sharia law. They don't believe in a Britain law. They don't believe in Canadian law. They don't believe in any other constitutional law, because this is above every law. This is from Allah, from Muhammad.
Why?
They don't submitting to any other law whatsoever.
Why do you think that for example, in the United Kingdom, we are seeing a lot of the younger Muslim generation being far more extreme than the older Muslim generation? That's not to say all Muslims are acting in extreme ways, but there is a vast amount of younger Muslims. that are ready to go out and join ISIS, or they start telling us we want Sharia for the UK and we're going to bring Sharia for the UK. It's the only law, we don't recognise UK law. What is it you think makes the children that were born in the United Kingdom or maybe born in America suddenly go from being perfectly at ease with the way our life is, our culture, our way of life, to suddenly telling us, no, yours is all wrong, and becoming very extreme? What do you think has created that?
Okay, first of all, the lack of enforcing the British law and make it clear that there is no law above Britain law or Canadian law. Okay, from the first of all, I will blame the government. Number one. Number two, the people. They're not fully, or I would say fully, but they have to be knowledge enough to understand the other people in their country, what's the different ideology or how they think. And the other reason, in Islam, they brainwash the kids since they're kids. When the damage happen, you know, the more important years of any child when they're born, the main, like I would say from 0 to what, like 12, 15, this is the main age or years, and you shape the person, you shape the kid, how they think. The isolation of Muslims, because as I said, in Islam they teach it's a submitting, and they put in the kid's head the conspiracy, that the infidels, they are their enemy. And the Quran teach وَلَنْ تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم. That means the Jews and the Christians, they will not gonna be happy until you follow them. They're not gonna be a friend with you until you become one of them. So this is the mentality they bring it in the kid's mind, that no matter what you do, the victimizing. They teach the kids that we are the victim. We are we have to many people are attacking us because of our religion. Many people see us as a demons because of our religion. They teach the kids that you are a victim. The kids grow up with this. They grow feeling, knowing, or believing that they are victim, and the surrounders, they don't love them. The other, whoever live around them, they don't love, they are the infidels, the mushrik, the kafir. So that's why isolation, the isolating, you know, Islamic schooling, school, of course, everything has to be done. Isolating, they isolate the kids to associate with other in their mind. Don't say Merry Christmas, don't say this. In Islam, if you say this, you are many things. They corrupt the mentality of the kids when they're young. So it's a bit hard to fix it easy when they're growing up with that.
Yeah, and even though I know that England may not be Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia may not be England, we do know that Saudi Arabia money is deeply ingrained in our government and deeply ingrained into many of the landmark buildings in London. And something you asked me, you were quite surprised to see that the London Lord Mayor, or the London Mayor, was Sadiq Khan, because you said you couldn't understand why people would vote that way. But what a lot of people don't realise is that a lot of the people, sort of, I suppose you'd call them indigenous Londoners, have really been driven out of London. And it's been very much, there are certain areas in London, such as Tower Hamlets. There are places in Luton, like Luton Bury Park. There are places in Birmingham where it just isn't safe for someone like me or you to walk along and feel that we are in any way, shape or form, one, welcome, two, not in any kind of danger. And I myself, doing what I do, get a lot of death threats, and I imagine you get an imaginable amount of death threats.
For me, when I told my family that I became Christian, and I was actually in Jordan, and of course they kicked me out in the street, and they threatened me to be killed, and my sister, she kicked me out in the street, and they said you should be killed, and my son at that time was with his dad in Saudi Arabia, and they said to me, you won't see your son again. And my dad also, like, I just wanted to go and take my son. There was like agreement between me and his dad at that time, for a certain time, until I finish education and stuff, because I was working into building my myself. And everything was fine until I openly told them I'm not like Muslim, that's it, I'm Christian, and I don't believe in Islam. I openly told them this, and yeah, they kicked me out in the street. My sister, my own sister, she kicked me on the street, and she said, you're filthy, you're kafir, you're infidels, you should be killed, this and that. And they threatened me to call my brother to I could have been killed, you know, I could have been killed. And I escaped. I came back to Canada, and they said to me, you will never see your son again. Forget it. And my ex also, like, he said, that's it. You're a Christian now. You're infidel. Forget about your son, and you won't see him again. Even my dad, he said, you should be crucified. You should be killed. This is from where? This is from the Quran. All of this from the Quran. All this what they grow up with.
So there's almost more of a love for Islam than there is. Whereas I'm a mother, and as you know, I'm an atheist. I have more love for my child than I ever could for any book or any prophet,
right,
or any God. My child will always be far more important to me than anything
right.
else. And I'm sure if somebody said to you, you know, what do you love more? Your children are always going to be what you love more. But for you, it's the opposite. The fact that you were their child didn't compare to the shame that you brought to them as a kuffar. And we're told now that I have a lot of Muslims who come on my Twitter, and they'll say to me, Islam means peace. Islam is all peaceful, all loving, all giving. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't good Muslims, because I believe that there probably are good Muslims. Not every single Muslim, I mean 16 million, they can't all be that. But there has to be a point where we say, it doesn't matter how many good Muslims you've got, if what they follow is bad. And how far do they take that? Do they only look at the bits that are all lovely, and do they dismiss the bits that are not so nice? They'll always throw the Old Testament, which, as I told them, well, yeah, but it was reformed. It was reformed because they moved with the times. It modernized, but Islam can't be modernized. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I think all Muslims are bad people, but I do believe that we have to start having this conversation. And it's very, very brave of you as an apostate to put your face out there. I am in contact with actually 10 apostates in the United Kingdom who are living double lives. They live their life by day as Muslim, but they're not Muslim. But they can't say they're not Muslim. In a country like the United Kingdom, where they have the right to live a free life without fear, they don't have that. I'm just looking at another question here. She says, in reply to the question about does Sandra think the Quran, Islam, or the country which enforces it? Now, she's also said, then why do so many Muslims practice Islam differently?
Okay, reason that why many Muslims practice Islam differently, right?
Yeah.
Oh, to answer this question, you have to go back a little bit and study the history of Islam. The history of Islam and how what happened between the story of Ali and Aisha, and how they become an enemies, and what's happened between how all this started to become a Sunni Muslim and a Shiite Muslim and any other form, like, because it's Islam. It's a Let me tell you something. Islam, it's a maze. It's a taboo. It's when you like, you have to collect. You have to take your time and collect the dots, and the to take the full picture. It takes not just looking at people. Don't even bother looking at people. Never judge Islam from people. This is my advice to everyone. And they practice Islam differently because look at the history. Look at what happened. World War I, World War II. The collapsing of the caliphates many times, and where they how much they understand the Quran. You will be surprised if I tell you 70% of Muslims, they don't even understand the Quran. They just follow whatever the Imam tells them. They don't even think for themselves. Many Muslims,
I actually would be shocked. I mean, I should be, but I'm actually not shocked at that at all. Many that talk to me that have told me that going onto social media and listening to things like this kind of interview actually opened their eyes up, and when they found they couldn't defend it, they started to actually read it. And I went, but you recited. I went, yeah, but we recite it. We didn't read it. And a lot of Muslims that have left Islam because they finally stopped reciting and started to actually read. But anybody who criticises Islam in this country is demonised as being far right, fascist, Nazis. We get called every despicable name under the book, and that seems to be perfectly all right. Yet I wish no harm to Muslims. It seems that many Muslims would like to see harm come to you and I. Now, I want to cut this quite brief, not because I don't love speaking to you, but you and I have come up with I put an idea to you and you sort of went, yeah. So for those who are watching, myself and Sandra are going to be doing a weekly slot, a 30-minute weekly slot. We haven't discussed what day yet. What day do you think would be best for you, Sandra?
I don't know. We will discuss this, offline to see.
Because I think you've got a fascinating story. I think that you've got a fact that I hate the word story actually, life experience, and a fascinating amount of knowledge. And we want to grow the audience so there are more people that come on and they know you're going to be on there. Once they know what day you're going to be on, I don't mind if they want to come on and they don't agree with you and they want to put questions to you and give you the opportunity to answer those questions. If they want to come on and be abusive, well, then that's going to show them up, not you. So we're going to end tonight's first introductory show and I want to thank you for accepting the request and the opportunity to actually do this with me. And I don't want it to go on so long that people lose interest. So we're going to try and keep it down to the 30 minute to 45 minute segment. Hopefully we won't have any teething problems next time, and we'll get on and everything will work hunky-dory. But for now, I'm going to bid you a good night, because for me it's quite late here. For you, it's quite early in the afternoon, so go and enjoy your tea. My love to your family. And
okay,
don't forget to put the kettle on and make a nice cup of tea for your son. He likes a nice cup of tea.
Yes, I would love to. English cup of tea.
when you come here or I come to you, I'll even bring the English tea bags.
Yes, I would love to. And I would just wrap it up with one thing that also I want the audience to know, that whatever I'm doing it for the protection of the mindset of people, and not to be deceived, and not to fall into the victim card that the many Muslims they're trying to play, and to wake up their eyes and to see the truth for what it is, and to stand for their freedom, and it's not out of hate, it's out of love.
And where can people find you on social media? They can find you on Facebook. Can they find you on Twitter?
No.
Sorry?
No problem. Yes, of course, Facebook is Sandra Solomon for now, and very soon I'm building a website that's gonna have all my activities and all my videos, and also I'm starting, as I said, I start organization called Canadians Against Islamization, and I'm gonna be doing uh, standing every Saturday from 2 to 4 in downtown Toronto to educate people about Islam, and talk with people and let them know and give evidence. I speak with evidence. We have, I like to, knowledge, it's powerful. People need to know. So
it is. Knowledge is power. And
yes,
power is knowledge. And do you have a Twitter account, Sandra? So anybody who wants to can go and find you on Twitter.
I'm not on Twitter yet, but you can do, like, I would have to sign up, and I didn't sign up on Twitter yet, so I'm a little bit behind.
We'll rectify that one, Sandra. We'll get people over and following you and connecting with you as well, because I think that it's a really brave person who leaves Islam, who not only speaks out but puts their face out there as well. So I'd like to take my hat off, if I had one, and applaud you for your bravery and your courage, and say thank you very much for giving me your time.
More anything I can help with to educate people about Islam, it's my pleasure, and all the best for you. Thank you so much, and we will discuss weekly meeting as well.
Not a problem. We've connected now. Let's get the ball rolling and let's keep this going. For now, everybody take care, stay safe. My love to everyone. Good night.
My love to everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.